In this forecast, Hurricane Ian brought catastrophic impacts to the state of Florida and is expected to bring major impacts to the Carolinas tomorrow. More significant flooding and storm surge upwards of 8 feet could occur along the Carolina coast tomorrow. And we are not done with severe weather yet. Who could see a tornado threat tomorrow? All of that and more is coming right up. Tropical Storm Ian is still making some fairly significant impacts to portions of Florida, and we're still seeing some extreme flooding in northeastern Florida near Daytona Beach, all the way through St. Augustine. All these outer bands and inner bands that we're seeing on the north side of Tropical Storm Ian is still bringing a substantial amount of rainfall. We actually did have a flash flood emergency that was ongoing for Daytona Beach earlier this morning, and taking a live look from Daytona Beach right around lunchtime, we're still seeing a lot of rain out there. The roadways are wet. A lot of areas have flooding waters as well, and the trees are still swaying, indicating we're still seeing some tropical storm force winds. And as of right now, Tropical Storm Ian is just off the coast of Florida. It is actually still a very strong tropical storm. There is your eye just east of Titusville. It is currently still a tropical storm with sustained winds at 70 miles per hour. Wind gusts are still upwards of 85 to 90 miles per hour. And we have a lot of power outages across Florida. And according to poweroutage.us, there is currently 2.6 million people in Florida without power. That is almost 25% of Florida that is currently without power. And those red boxes are indicating the highest power outages. For example, Volusia County is over 60% without power, and areas in southwest Florida where the hurricane made landfall are nearly 100% without power. And this is the infrared imagery of Tropical Storm Ian, and it is still not the most organized tropical storm anymore. Obviously, since it's interacted with land a lot, it is beginning to weaken. However, it will begin to strengthen as it goes over the open Atlantic Ocean waters. And the big concern from here is that it may make landfall, or most likely will make landfall, back up in South Carolina. So we're going to have to watch Tropical Storm Ian very closely as it re-strengthens into potentially a hurricane over the next 24 hours. And the National Hurricane Center is currently forecasting that this will become a hurricane by potentially later this afternoon, and as well as going into tomorrow, and it will eventually make landfall along the South Carolina coast. Somewhere near Charleston is most likely going to be our landfall in South Carolina. There are hurricane warnings in effect for those all across South Carolina. There are still tropical storm warnings from Port St. Lucie all the way back through Georgia and also into North Carolina. We do have tropical storm warnings still ongoing there as well. Going into Friday, though, it's going to make landfall somewhere time just after lunchtime, and then eventually going to Saturday, it'll be a tropical depression inland with winds likely dropping down below 30 miles per hour. Now, and storm surge is still a big concern across Florida and as well as all the way through North Carolina. We could see upwards of still 7 to 8 feet of storm surge along the east coast of the United States, and that would include anywhere again from North Carolina back through Florida. We are already seeing some storm surge this morning, and as well as going to the early afternoon hours across areas near Flagler, Volusia County line, all the way back through South Carolina this morning as high tide continues across those areas. Our biggest forecasted storm surge will be where this hurricane again makes landfall, which would be South Carolina most likely. Between 4 to 7 feet of storm surge will be possible there near Charleston, and then back through North Carolina, we're estimating between about 1 to 4 feet of storm surge, depending on where you are there across the state of North Carolina. Now, where will Tropical Storm Ian go long term? I know we've had a lot of question marks on will it impact New England or will it impact anywhere in the Ohio Valley? Where is it actually heading? Well, at this point, it seems very likely that we'll see some pretty substantial impacts to areas, at least in the mid-Atlantic, in terms of rainfall, a low-end tornado potential, and storm surge along the east coast of the United States. From there, it looks like this will be a slow-moving system and eventually go back out to the east into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, from there, if it goes a little bit more off to the east, northeast, or northeast, potentially towards New England, that could potentially bring some storm surge and some impacts to southern New England. So, wind will still be a concern in the southeastern portions of the United States, including South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. This is a look at the wind gusts going into tonight. We will begin to see tropical storm force wind gusts along the coastline. So, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Savannah, all between 40 to 50 miles per hour going into tonight. Now, going to tomorrow morning, we will begin to see those numbers really ramp up between 50 to maybe even 70 miles per hour. Before this makes landfall, we'll see our highest wind gusts most likely in those areas near Charleston and Myrtle Beach. Upwards of 75 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts could occur there along the coastline. And even Savannah, Georgia, still be between potentially 35 to 45 miles per hour. Eventually going to Friday afternoon, we will begin to see this hurricane make landfall somewhere there again between Myrtle Beach and Charleston, and eventually going into Friday, late Friday into Saturday morning, those wind gusts will start to go down as it makes more of an impact inland. Take you hour by hour on the future radar. Beginning with this evening, we'll begin to see rain along the east coast of South Carolina from Savannah back through Myrtle Beach. A lot of it will be light to moderate rain, but we will eventually see more heavy rain going into the overnight hours, into the morning hours as well, into tomorrow. As you can see here, we'll begin to see some of these reds and pinks. That's representing some heavier rainfall going into the coastline near Myrtle Beach and as well as Charleston. Eventually going into later Friday, that all will move inland, and eventually probably going into Friday night, a lot of that rainfall will start to dwindle along the east coast of South Carolina. Now, what's expected in terms of rainfall? Well, we are still going to expect probably a decent amount of rain. Charleston is currently estimated to get upwards of a half a foot of rain, maybe even some isolated higher amounts. The highest amount that's currently being estimated is upwards of a foot of rain. So we could see some flooding across some areas, again, between Charleston and Myrtle Beach. Seems like that greatest likelihood for the potential for some flooding. Then going a bit further north into Friday, for those in North Carolina, there will be a potential for a few tornadoes, and that would include areas from basically in eastern North Carolina would be our best potential with some of those outer bands. And going into Friday afternoon will probably be our best potential for that. There may be a couple of isolated tornadoes embedded and a couple of those outer bands, and eventually going into Friday evening, that threat should start to dwindle. So our best potential as of right now will likely be during Friday afternoon. Heading into Saturday, we'll begin to see a lot of that rain move off to the north and northwest, and again into areas like Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and as well as even to Ohio. Some of those areas will see some of the remnants from Ian basically back up that direction. So there may be some rain, but nothing beyond that is expected that far off to the northwest. Again, we'll keep you updated with the latest on hurricane or even tropical storm Ian coverage here on our YouTube page. Make sure to subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting and All That's Repair. This will be a